Good evening, everybody. Double checking my settings, which should be good. The medallion's out, so you know where this is going. So this is a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Never really got it perfect, and then I realized that I'm an INFJ and a perfectionist, so nothing will ever be perfect. But it's an important video, not just for my brothers and sisters of the craft, but for seekers, beginner witches, and in my opinion, all of those of an Abrahamic background, particularly women. Because this is a story that has often been suppressed, that the establishment of those religions do not want you to know. For the star of this story has been slandered and feared and reviled for most of her existence, for no other reason than wanting what was rightfully hers, what was stolen, and for trying to empower others so that they may not be subjected to the same hypocrisy and betrayal that she was. Yes, of course, I am talking about Queen Lilith. But for those of you that may not know her origin, her background, we're going to get into that, and we're going to see who's truly at fault here. So, Lilith, as I've mentioned in a previous video, most of you know, was the first wife of Adam, and later the mother of demons, the queen of hell. She became a queen in her own right, though. So, why? Why is she feared? Why are you told to fear her? Why are you told she is evil? What did she do? What was her crime? Well, as most from Abrahamic background probably were taught, that original sin began in the Garden of Eden. And that is true. And that it was Eve eating the apple from the tree of knowledge, the forbidden tree, because knowledge is bad, is what caused it. What if I told you that there was a sin prior to that? Yeah, and it wasn't committed against God. It was committed by him. That's right. It wasn't Eve who sinned first, who broke the rules, who changed the game, and it wasn't Lilith either. It was God himself. Now, why is that? So, when Adam and Lilith were created, this is in Genesis 1, this is why there's two conflicting creation stories, and it goes deeper, into the story of Lilith in Jewish mythology. I forget the exact books, but it's there. Rabbis talk about her. A lot of them are afraid of her, But, so, as most people know, Adam was created from dust, and God breathed life into him. But he wasn't alone. No. Lilith was created at the same time from that same dust, the same dust as Adam, and thus created equally. That's right. So those that say that, from creation, women were made of man to be subservient to men, basically as property and slave wives. It's actually not how it started. It started equal. Yeah. Lilith and Adam as equals, as partners in the garden. And at first, it seemed things were going well. But then Adam wasn't happy. Now, why wasn't Adam happy? Gee, most people would think, what was Lilith, holding back sex? And for those of you that know anything about Lilith, that doesn't sound like Lilith. No. Lilith, had such a unreasonable request from her husband that she was equal with. She wanted to be on top. She wanted to mix it up a little bit. And Adam flat out refused because apparently everything was about him and what he wanted when he wanted. And instead of, compromising with his partner, whom was in love with him, who simply wanted to explore other things and, algorithm, we're not going to say it, but Lilith's all about exploring in that region, as are her children. But no, what does Adam do? He goes crying to God. Lilith won't submit to me. Make her submit. Make her be subservient to me. And she was basically told to do that, and she refused. She went on, we were created equal. This is not what you told me. Why all of a sudden is he superior? This isn't right. And then she was basically told that if she wouldn't, that she'd be exiled. So, at this moment, enraged, and rightfully so, with a sense of betrayal that her creator, who created her equally, is now making her subservient and a lesser for no sin or crime that Lilith herself committed, just simply because Adam cried and wanted his way, and God favored him. So, what does she do? She curses the name of God, and in a rage that even an INFJ can't duplicate. Perhaps Lilith was one. Might explain why we're so rare. Wouldn't want too many Lilithan type people walking around. Look at the damage I can cause, and I'm nobody. But, and look at challenging the status quo, like people like Mandela and Gandhi, they're INFJs. So, enraged, through her own will, this woman who was born mortal sprouts draconic wings and horns, flies into the night. She doesn't wage war. She doesn't harm Adam. She was given a choice: submit or exile. She chose exile. So, in this sense, she did what she was told. Obviously, they wanted her to pick the other option, but, you give someone two choices. You can't be mad when they pick the one that you don't want them to. That was on the table. So, Lilith, now in exile, completely alone, in a desert environment, plans what to do. Cohorts with some fallen angels who also believe that the big guy upstairs is out of touch and a tyrant, and shouldn't have absolute power. It's funny to believe. A lot of people believe that, those that have fallen are, enemies, want to destroy the creator, as it were. No, they more or less see him as out of touch. That's why those that have fallen interact with humanity and understand them and understand where humanity's at this point, and that things have progressed since the Bronze Age. This is portrayed fairly well in the TV series Lucifer, with the character Lucifer's interaction with God, perfectly played by Morgan Freeman, by the way. Very entertaining. But, Lilith's in exile, doing her own thing. By the way, I'm going to try to paraphrase this story as much as I can to make it so most people can understand it. But that's still not good enough, because now Adam's lonely. Yeah. So, what does God do? He dispatches 3 archangels to forcefully drag Lilith back to the garden. But Lilith fights him off, and they give her an ultimatum, which she then counters, and it involves her demonic children and them dying, and, Lilith saying, if you kill my children, I'm going to kill, I'm going to start taking the lives of followers of your God. And at this point, all she wanted was to be left alone. It's like, look, you told me to leave. I left. Now leave me alone in exile. But no. And then, of course, is the more familiar story where Adam's still lonely. God brings him all kinds of animals to be his companion, but Adam wants a wife. But Adam wants a wife that's basically his property, so God puts him in a deep sleep, takes his rib, and makes Eve, which is made from a part of him, and thus as a part of him, she must be subservient to him and his property and just do what she's told and basically be used to ride whenever he pleased and birth children. But Lilith, being slighted, rightfully, she was supposed to be the primordial mother of humanity, as it were. And Lilith, with her strength and free will, she is still very maternal, trust me, and protective. So she devises a plan after, first to go back into the garden, and this is where the story varies. There is some amongst biblical scholars who convinced Eve to eat the apple. Most say it's Lucifer. Some say it was Lilith, because Lilith at this point can change form. From beautiful woman to beautiful woman with draconic features to full-on, like, 7-foot scary demon that can kick ass. Yeah. You want her on your side, trust me. So, let's just say for the sake of argument that it was Lilith in the garden. And Eve is all of a sudden not so happy. Lilith's telling her about what happened to her. And what the natural order was, and how she's nothing more than Adam's property. But over there at that tree, she can learn the truth. The forbidden fruit holds knowledge and abilities that they don't want her to have, because they don't want her to be equal. And then thus the standard story of original sin and Adam and Eve's exile from the garden. Now, here's another part that most witches know that's a bit of mythology. Does kind of sound interesting to me, though this isn't official. While Adam and Eve were in exile, Lilith decides, in order to restore balance as it was promised to be, with her and Adam being equal, she needs offspring. And not demonic offspring, but human offspring. So, being, the original succubus, she accosts Adam while he's sleeping, on top, of course, and this is also why, because she's the mother of succubi, why when succubi accost men, they're always on top. Unless you're bonded to one, then they like to teach you things. But, we're talking random encounters. So now, Lilith, having mated with Adam, have offspring. And there's an interesting thing, at least in Catholicism, not so much anymore, but in decades past. They don't like you to be left-handed. But why is that? Well, throughout history, left hand is the sinister hand, being sinister. But this mythology did evolve over time that if you're left-handed, which only 13% of the population are, which ironically enough, the number 13 is very important in witchcraft. It's usually the number in a coven, and it's based on the number of full moons in a year. So 13% left-handed. There is a theory that those that are left-handed, their primordial mother isn't Eve, it's Lilith. And that's where all the rebellion comes from. But if you look at it, extrapolate this story further. If you condemn Lilith for her rebellion, then you condemn all rebellion, because through that, it means that, God is not only infallible and perfect and can do whatever he wants and change the rules on a whim, it means the same for anybody that derives their power from him. Common example for most of my audience, if you believe that, then our country doesn't exist. Now, why is that? Because, the King George III ruled by will of God, divine right of kings. This country was created in a rebellion against a tyrant, making unfair rules, changing the game at a whim. No taxation without representation. So, if Lilith was wrong to stand up to a tyrant, then everybody who stands up to a tyrant is wrong. She is the original rebel. She's the original feminist. She's the original empowered woman person, even. You think about it, how ballsy is that? To stand up to the being that created you and be cast into exile by yourself. You don't know what's out there. But you knew it was better than submission, than living the life as a slave, as property. It's pretty admirable in my book. Is Lilith perfect? No. Is she a villain? No. Is she an anti-hero? Yeah, she kind of fits that trope pretty well. Lilith often does the wrong things for the right reasons. And all she wants, it's the same thing a lot of women want today. And it's simply to restore that original primordial equality. But it is important to note, Lilith is all about equality, not superiority. She's all about balance. She's all about punishing people who take away the free will of others, too. But It's about, balance and equality, not superiority. That is why, many witches, especially female witches, work with Lilith. One can argue she is the mother of witchcraft. She was born mortal, essentially, and became a god. She's the first being in Abrahamic mythology that deified herself. Fallen angels started out as angels. She started out as a woman, became a, demoness, essentially. But she did it on her own, through her own will. It shows you the power of witchcraft right there, and why witchcraft, through most of history, has been feared. Because the status quo, as it were, through Christianity, men, women, you property, you do what you're told, you do whatever you want, wife say no, you can hit. That kind of barbarism. And witchcraft is the original, group thing that empowers women. And Lilith is the original goddess that women rallied around to gain some form of empowerment, to break the chains of oppression. As it's commonly said, Lilith said, the teachings of the church have made you forget who you are, break the chains, and become who you were meant to be. In other words, what is your free will? What do you wish to do? What do you believe, instead of what was ingrained in you and perhaps beaten in you to believe, to simply fall in line, to perpetuate a corrupt status quo that is only perpetuated to further benefit those that already benefit from them. So because if things were equal the way Lilith wants them, people would actually have to compete on their own merit. There wouldn't be an ingrained system to further perpetuate those in power remaining in power, and those having all the benefits, and other people based on their gender being kept from those positions. Get it? Yeah. So if you are a feminist, if you believe in the equality of women regardless of your gender, then Lilith is your ally, because without her, the battle for equality wouldn't exist, because it all began with her. It was first taken away from her. She was the first one to rebel against it. She was the first one to say this isn't right. And today, many who fight that fight derive influence and power from her, because that which is divine cannot be wholly suppressed. It's why many who believe in a very patriarchal system fear Lilith, because her presence, her power, has always been around, and it must be kept down in order to perpetuate their patriarchy. That's why she's been slandered so much over the years, because she is a woman who became a goddess. You can't really get much more empowered than that, especially if there was no example before her. She just figured it out on her own for sheer will. Shows you what's possible through witchcraft, isn't it? But many do fear her, some rightfully so, based on their own actions, especially if you're male. It's all about how you treat women. If you try to make a deal with Lilith and you haven't treated women well, or you're trying to make a deal with Lilith to gain power and influence so you can take advantage of women, Lilith will have the last laugh. And she's very intelligent and very machinacious that way. There's a reason why, she's known as the Queen of Hell. But she didn't become the Queen of Hell through marriage. She's a queen in her own right. She walked a long path to get where she's at. And she's still striving for her goal. Her goal is to regain the equality that was stolen from her. And, some say that, if you work with Lilith, you'll ultimately be punished. Not if you keep up your end of the bargain and don't sell out. If you're asking her for something and she gives it to you, and giving it to you is going to help her cause, then you're her ally. Like, you're in her army. Why would she betray you? You're doing what she wants you to do. You're helping her fight. You agree with her. She's not going to turn on you. You know, she's quite a protective mother type. Just don't give her a timeline. She does things on her own time, when she wants. She doesn't like being told what to do. You know, somebody very powerful tried that a long time ago and it didn't go well. If she tells you she'll do something, she'll do it. But you got to be patient. She's very good at timing. She knows when to do things. We don't. So I wanted to get this story out there. I could go on and on about Lilith, but I wanted to go, make a video about basically saying how Lilith was the first person ever to be betrayed. And she wasn't asking for anything. She just wanted what was rightfully hers, her equality. And that struggle still goes on today. And it's a fight that I am proud to be a part in, to give my queen and, all other women their birthright back, their equality. It's just important to remember that, equality isn't superiority. Lilith wants to destroy a corrupt patriarchal system and have equality. You got to be careful. When you burn something corrupt down, you don't build something corrupt in its place. You don't kill a tyrant to become a tyrant, because Lilith is rebelling against a tyrant. Just saying. To keep a system going, you need offspring, which you need, males. You need a couple of us. Yes, definitely there are queens that would, rather have a prince consort than a king. That's fine. But I'm saying, you need those of us that are your ally. Don't forget about it. Don't lump us in with the others. We exist. Few of us as there are. We do exist. So, yes, I hope this was informative to anybody who is wondering who Lilith is, what her origin is, and why. Why, oh why is she called so evil and rebellious? What did she do that was so bad? Well, she basically said, I'm not going to be a slave. Yeah. And was told to leave. And did. And then was tried to get drugged back. And said no. And fought. And continues to fight for this day. So, if you are looking to escape oppression, if somebody is stealing your free will, if you are having trouble saying no, setting boundaries, being the person deep down you want to be because you just don't have the will to put that person forth, there is no one better to help you with that than Queen Lilith. And if you're willing to help others in that cause, and give her due praise after she helps you, then you have nothing to fear from her. Remember that.